It started with a drink, a glass of sangria made just for me. Diane said it was her special birthday recipe, offered with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I thanked her, took it, and when she turned away, I switched it with her husband's. Call it instinct. Call it paranoia. But 45 minutes later, Gerald was pale, shaking, and vomiting into a toilet while Diane stood frozen across the table, her eyes locked with mine. In that silence, something shifted. Something permanent. My name is Julian Mercer. I'm 32, a freelance photographer based out of Asheville, North Carolina. I've built my business from scratch: weddings, wildlife, editorial spreads. It's not glamorous, but it pays well if you're good, and I am. I've been published by National Geographic and hired by clients with more money than taste. It's the kind of work that doesn't impress people like Gerald and Diane. To them, I'm still the guy with a nice little hobby. Gerald, my father-in-law, measures success in numbers, square footage, investment returns, trust funds. He's an investment banker who treats family dinners like shareholder meetings, casual power plays disguised as polite conversation. Diane, his wife, is subtler. Passive-aggressive smiles and pointed questions. Praise laced with poison. Every Sunday, they host dinner at their sprawling colonial on the hill, and every Sunday they remind me, sometimes overtly, sometimes not, that I'm not one of them. My wife, Haley, squeezes my hand under the table. A silent apology. A lifeline. That night, we were there for Diane's birthday. I had just come back from a brutal assignment in Montana, trudging through snow to photograph bison herds for a nature spread. The trip paid well but drained me. I was bone-tired, frostbitten in places I didn't know could freeze, and ready to collapse. But Haley insisted we go. Just a couple hours, she said. It's important to her. Important to Diane. Of course. We arrived at their home, 3 stories of stone and old money. Haley's brother Owen was already there with his wife, Vanessa. They had a toddler, James, who Diane adored. Dinner was routine. Gerald talked stocks, Diane fussed over table settings, Owen tried to stay out of the crossfire. I kept my mouth shut and counted the courses. Then came dessert. Diane disappeared into the kitchen to make her famous sangria. When I offered to help, she hesitated just a beat too long. In the kitchen, I saw it. 2 glasses set apart from the rest. She turned sharply when I entered, her hand slipping something back into her pocket. A small vial. Clear. Odorless. Whatever it was, it didn't belong in sangria. This one's for you, she said, too brightly. Special recipe for my favorite son-in-law. I felt my chest tighten. My pulse in my throat. I smiled. Let me help you carry these. In the dining room, I set the glass in front of Gerald. He barely looked up from his phone. I took the other drinks around the table, then poured myself water. Not in a wine mood, I said casually. 45 minutes later, Gerald's face turned gray. He staggered from the table, clutching his stomach. The sounds from the bathroom were violent, echoing through the halls. Diane froze. Her fork hovered in midair. Then our eyes met. That was the moment I knew she had tried to poison me. I didn't react. Just kept eating cake while the house erupted into chaos. Haley rushed after her father. Diane stumbled after her. I slipped the untouched glass into my camera bag. Quiet. Methodical. Something inside me had turned. Not rage. Not fear. Something colder. Resolve. The following Monday, I took the glass to a former client of mine, Jason, who ran a forensic lab and owed me a favor. Personal or professional? He asked. Family, I said. 3 days later, he called. There were benzodiazepines in the drink, he said. Not lethal, but enough to knock you out. Could have caused memory loss, confusion. He asked where I got it. I didn't answer. I didn't tell Haley. Not yet. Not until I had more. Over the next 2 weeks, I dug. Diane had 3 active Xanax prescriptions from different doctors. Neighbors had stories. At a charity auction, she was caught in someone's bedroom. Jewelry went missing at her country club. Whispers swept the town like wind through tall grass. Haley didn't know any of it. Her mother had kept her image spotless. But that was about to change. The moment came when Haley mentioned her mother wanted new profile pictures for social media. She specifically asked if you'd take them, she said. Her eyes puzzled. Of course, I replied. I arrived at the house alone. My camera bag in one hand, a sealed envelope in the other. Diane greeted me with practiced warmth. Gerald's at the office, she said. Before we start, I said, I thought you should see this. I handed her the envelope. Toxicology report. Prescription records. Copies of the stories I'd gathered. Her hands shook as she read. This is absurd, she whispered. I would never. We both know what you did, I said quietly. What I don't know is why. Her expression changed. Cold. Unapologetic. You're not good enough for Haley. You never were. A man should provide security, not pictures. And drugging me provides security? She didn't flinch. It was supposed to make you sick. Miss your precious gallery opening. Make Haley question your reliability. I let the silence stretch. You're going to tell Gerald, I said finally. Then you're going to leave us alone. No more sabotage. No more poison. Because if you don't, Haley finds out everything. I show her this. I show her who you really are. She laughed, but it was hollow. She'll never believe you. Maybe, but she'll believe the lab report. And your prescriptions. And the neighbors. And if she doesn't, well, are you willing to bet your relationship with your daughter on that? I left without taking a single photo. That night, Diane called Haley in tears. Said I'd acted inappropriately. Said I'd been threatening. The performance of a woman playing the victim in her own play. Haley confronted me, confused, hurt. So I showed her everything. She stared at the report, her mouth trembling. My mother wouldn't do this. But her voice lacked conviction. The next day, she went to confront them. I didn't go. When she returned, her eyes were red. My dad says it was a misunderstanding, she whispered. That you're trying to drive a wedge because you're insecure about your job. I just nodded. The trap had been sprung. But somehow I was the one caught in it. For 2 weeks, the house was cold. Not in temperature, but in silence. Haley barely looked at me. When she spoke, it was clipped, exhausted. She started going to her parents' house alone again. Came back with eyes rimmed red, voice quieter than I remembered. The kind of quiet that doesn't come from peace, but from confusion. Conflict. I stayed busy. I shot 3 weddings, edited a commercial spread for a hotel chain in Denver, and locked myself in my studio every night pretending that lighting and composition could fix a marriage unraveling beneath a weight of gaslight and legacy. That's when the package arrived. Plain brown envelope. No return address. Just my name scrawled in a handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a USB drive and a note, you should see this. Vanessa. Owen's wife. I plugged the drive into my laptop and sat in silence, heart hammering harder with each click. There were video files, security camera footage, clearly from Diane and Gerald's house. Time-stamped. Labeled. The first showed the night of the dinner. Diane in the kitchen. 2 glasses in front of her. She reaches into her pocket, pours from a small clear vial into 1 glass. Her movements are precise. Rehearsed. She doesn't hesitate. Then I appear. Walking in, taking both glasses from the counter. Gerald later drinks from the one she'd tampered with. But that wasn't all. Next video, Diane yelling. Not upset, not flustered, furious. Screaming at Gerald in the kitchen after we left. You drank the wrong glass, she hissed. Do you realize what you've done? Gerald shouting back, this isn't the first time, Diane. I leaned back in my chair. Not the first time. The final clip, 2 days after the dinner. Gerald and Diane in their living room. Gerald's voice is low, tired. He knows what you did. So what? Diane snaps. It's his word against mine. Haley will never choose him over us. If she does, she adds, her voice like ice, she's not the daughter I raised. Gerald sighs. And if this blows back on us? It won't, Diane cuts in. I've already started. Told her Julian's been acting withdrawn. Moody. Stressed. That she should watch him. Maybe suggest therapy. By the time I'm done, she'll think the marriage is falling apart and it was all her idea. I stared at the screen, my mouth dry. This wasn't impulsive. This was a strategy. I called Vanessa immediately. Why did you send this to me? Her voice was quiet. Because they did the same thing to me. She told me how Diane and Gerald had tried to drive a wedge between her and Owen for years. Subtle things, planting rumors, twisting words, gaslighting, always wearing a mask of concern. It nearly worked. Owen never knew, she said. Still doesn't. They stopped when James was born. When they realized they could control us through him. I thanked her. Hung up. Then I called Jason, the lab guy. Had him transfer the video files to official formats. Backed them up to cloud, to drives, to hidden folders with encryption. If they were willing to lie, manipulate, even poison, I needed protection. The next day, I received a text from Gerald. We should talk. Man to man. No wives. We met at his country club, a private room off the main lounge. He poured bourbon into 2 heavy glasses. The ice clinked like warning bells. Julian, he said, calm, almost friendly. Families are complicated. My wife, she's protective. She acts rashly. But she means well. Drugging someone means well? I asked. He sighed. She didn't mean to hurt you. Just shake things up. Make Haley see the cracks. I have the footage. His face didn't twitch. Just hardened. Cold. Calculating. What do you want? Money? That it? No. I want you to leave us alone. No more interference. No more sabotage. Gerald leaned forward. You think this is new? You think you're the first one we've had to deal with? What do you mean? Ask Haley about Thomas, he said, sipping his drink. Ask her about the fiancé before you. I blinked. Fiancé. Nice guy. Doctor. Parents had a past we didn't like. Took us 6 months to convince her he wasn't right. She came home crying. Heartbroken. But safe. He smiled. History repeats. I left without finishing my drink. On the drive home, I called Bethany, Haley's college roommate. We'd only spoken a few times. She sounded surprised to hear from me. Thomas, she repeated. Yeah. That was awful. They were in love. He was perfect for her. But her parents, they made it look like he was cheating. Staged texts. Emails. Haley believed it. Broke it off. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just about me. It was a pattern. A campaign. Every person Haley had ever loved, they'd isolated. Manipulated. Erased. I didn't tell Haley right away. I needed more. I found Thomas. He was married now, had 2 kids. At first, he didn't want to talk. But once I explained, he agreed to send me the emails, the real ones. Messages he'd sent Haley after they broke up. Messages she'd never replied to. Some were marked unread. Others had responses that she claimed she never wrote. Her parents had been reading her messages. Editing them. Deleting what didn't fit their story. I contacted old friends Haley had drifted from. Same story. Calls that weren't returned. Emails that got strange responses. Gradual disappearances. Anyone who encouraged her independence was surgically removed from her life. I compiled it all, the footage, the emails, the testimonies. A single, damning drive. Then I invited Owen and Vanessa over for dinner. Without telling Haley. Over dessert, I connected my laptop to the TV. There's something you both need to see, I said. For the next hour, no one moved. We watched it all. Diane's hands. Gerald's voice. The lies. The manipulation. When it ended, the room was silent. Haley looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I reached for her hand. Because I needed you to see it for yourself. That night, after Owen and Vanessa left, Haley didn't say much. She sat on the edge of the bed, arms around her knees, eyes unfocused. I didn't push her. She was unraveling years of conditioning, peeling back layers of her life that weren't hers to begin with. When she finally spoke, it was a whisper. What if I never really made any decisions for myself? I sat beside her. You did. You chose me. And you're still choosing now. She nodded, but it wasn't a nod of certainty. Just acknowledgement that the question had no easy answer. The next morning, she called her parents. Put it on speaker. Mom, she said. We need to talk. Tonight. Everyone. Diane tried to deflect, play it off as overblown. Darling, if this is about Julian's accusations. Haley cut her off. I've seen the videos. Silence. Then Diane's voice, brittle and falsely composed. Whatever he showed you, it's been manipulated. We'll be there at 7. That evening, we drove to their house. Owen and Vanessa followed in a separate car. I brought my gear, tripod, mic camera. When we arrived, Gerald opened the door with a politician's smile. Diane was behind him, already wearing her mask of maternal grace. I understand there's been a misunderstanding, Gerald said. No misunderstanding, I replied, setting up the tripod. I'm documenting this conversation for the family archives. Diane's voice rose an octave. This is private. Exactly, I said. Family business. And I'm family. We sat in the living room, the air heavy with tension. I hit record. For the next 2 hours, we laid it all out. The footage. The manipulation. The pattern. Thomas. The staged texts. The other relationships sabotaged with surgical precision. Owen looked increasingly pale. Haley sat rigid, face unreadable. Diane denied everything. Claimed the footage was fake. Gerald stayed mostly silent, occasionally interjecting with vague defenses, stress, anxiety, overprotectiveness. When I played the final clip, Diane and Gerald discussing how to make Haley think the marriage was her problem, Haley stood up. I love you both, she said, voice shaking but firm. You're my parents. But what you've done is unforgivable. You don't get to control my life anymore. Gerald blinked. As if he couldn't process what was happening. You're our daughter, he said. Everything we did was for your future. No, she replied. It was for your control. Owen stood too. He didn't look at his parents. Just nodded. We choose our own lives now. Diane began to cry loud, performative sobs that filled the room like theater smoke. Gerald just stared, calculating. As we prepared to leave, I handed him a USB drive. What's this supposed to mean, he asked. It's everything. The footage. The emails. The interviews. I'm not going to ruin your reputation. That would hurt Haley, and I won't do that. But if you interfere again, this goes to your colleagues. Your board. Your golf buddies. Gerald's mouth was a tight line. For the first time, I saw something that looked like respect in his eyes. Or fear. Maybe both. 6 months passed. Haley and Owen started therapy separately and together. The kind that digs deep and pulls out the bones no one wants to admit are buried. Gerald and Diane kept their distance. Occasional texts, polite check-ins, never crossing the lines we'd drawn. Then came the holidays. An invitation arrived. Embossed envelope. Elegant font. Let's start fresh. Holiday dinner. December 24th, family only. Haley wanted to go. They're still my parents, she said. And maybe they're trying. I agreed, but with conditions. We stay in a hotel. We leave when we want. And no alone time with Eliza. She nodded. Deal. Yes. We had a daughter now. Eliza. She came in summer. We named her after my grandmother. A quiet birth. Peaceful. Sacred. And for the first time in a long time, we felt like a unit again. Gerald and Diane visited the hospital. They brought gifts. Took photos. But they didn't push. Didn't pry. Something had shifted. They hadn't changed. But they'd learned they couldn't change us. Diane's holiday table was perfect. Of course it was. Bone white china with gold trim, tall candles that smelled faintly of pine and money. The roast was flawless, the wine expensive. Gerald wore a navy sweater that matched his smugness, and Diane floated through the room like a host auditioning for redemption. I played along. Polite. Calm. Distant. Eliza sat on Haley's lap in a velvet dress Diane had mailed a week earlier. I didn't want her wearing it, but Haley insisted. It's just a dress, she'd said. I wasn't so sure. Dinner was stiff but civil. Diane complimented Haley's figure, subtly implying she'd lost baby weight. Gerald asked about my latest project with the tone of someone reciting polite lines off a script. Then he invited me into his study. I have a proposition for you, he said, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. I didn't touch mine. I've been thinking about your career. Photography's worked out for you. But have you considered diversifying? He paused, watching me. I could bring you into my firm. Junior partner track. Salary, benefits, long-term growth. Stability. I stared at the drink in front of me. Why would you do that? He smiled. Your family. And I respect how you handled everything. You protected Haley. That's what a man does. I stood. I appreciate the offer. But no. His smile faded slightly. Julian, be reasonable. This is an olive branch. It's another leash. He set his glass down. The mask slipped. Everyone has a price. No, I said. That's where you're wrong. I walked back into the dining room. Diane was showing Haley photo albums, pointedly reminiscing about Haley's happier years at home. Subtle digs. Loaded memories. Haley caught my eye. Something in my expression must have shifted because she stood, gently handed Eliza to Vanessa, and cleared her throat. Mom. Dad. I have something to tell you. The room went still. We're having another baby. Silence. Then Diane's hands flew to her mouth in surprise, tears welling. Oh, sweetheart, Haley stepped back. Don't. Please. This isn't about you. Gerald moved toward me slowly, eyes calculating again. Congratulations, he said. His tone was careful. Really? Thank you, I said. I leaned in slightly. Quiet enough for only him to hear. This child will never be a pawn in your games. His eyes narrowed, but he nodded once. He understood. 3 weeks later, we got a certified letter. No message. No signature. Just a deed. To our house. Gerald had transferred ownership. Outright. Clean. No strings. Along with legal documents setting up a trust fund for Eliza and the new baby. Irrevocable. Permanent. It wasn't an apology. He wasn't capable of that. It was acknowledgement. The only kind he could give. Months passed. We settled into something resembling normal. They kept their distance. When they visited, they didn't give unsolicited advice. Didn't press. Diane held Eliza briefly, then handed her back without comment. Gerald asked about my work like he genuinely cared. And then, one day, a thick envelope arrived. Inside was a glossy brochure, Gerald's company's annual report. My photographs were on every page. Landscapes. Editorial portraits. Architecture. There was a note. Hired the best photographer I know. Thought you'd want a copy. I didn't call to thank him. He didn't expect me to. We understood each other now. Spring brought clarity. Maybe it was the clean mountain air, or maybe it was watching Haley plant basil on our back porch with Eliza giggling at her side, but for the first time in years, peace felt less like an illusion and more like a fragile truth we could live with. We'd won in our way. Not by crushing Diane and Gerald, but by escaping them. And then the gallery opened. Downtown Asheville, brick walls, exposed beams, my work displayed beneath soft lights and whispered awe. Photos from a decade of travel and pain and persistence. Landscapes from Alaska. Portraits from Morocco. The shot that made the cover of National Geographic. I called the Space Frame Truths. Haley named it, actually. Said it felt like what I'd been trying to do all along, capture reality before someone else could distort it. The opening night was packed. My parents flew in from Oregon. Clients, friends, old professors. And yes, Gerald and Diane came too. Diane wore soft pastels. A peace offering in fabric. Gerald shook my hand firmly. You've done well, he said. No smugness. Just acceptance. Maybe even pride. It was strange seeing them that way, contained, maybe even humbled. But I didn't trust the quiet. They stayed an hour, looked at every piece, posed for a photo with Eliza and Haley. No passive aggression. No fake compliments. Just restraint. And that was fine. Restraint was a victory. A week later, Eliza asked a question. Why don't Grandma and Grandpa stay over? Haley and I exchanged a glance. It started young, this awareness of difference. Of tension masked by politeness. Of grown-up silences. Haley kneeled beside her. Because sometimes people we love make choices that mean we have to be careful. But it doesn't mean we don't love them. Eliza blinked. Did they hurt you? A pause. Haley's voice was steady. Not the way you think. But yes, in a way. Will they hurt the baby? No, I said. Because we won't let them. Children are smart. Eliza nodded, satisfied. Then she went back to drawing. That night, I found myself looking through old photos I never displayed. The private ones. Haley laughing in the early days. A younger me, eyes clearer, shoulders not so tight. Pictures of Diane too, back before I knew her smile had teeth. There was one photo I hadn't realized I'd taken, Diane at a garden party, pouring wine. The same hand that once held a vial. The image was benign, but knowing what I knew made it heavy. I added it to a private collection. Not for sale. Just for memory. That weekend, Owen came by without Vanessa. He looked unsettled. I think they're trying something again, he said. What do you mean? Mom's been talking to Haley. A lot. Sending her articles about postpartum depression. Asking if you've been distant. Moody. My jaw clenched. She's trying to plant seeds again, Owen said. Same playbook. I nodded slowly. Then it's time we burn the playbook. Haley confronted her mother the next day. I didn't go. It had to be hers to do. When she came home, she said only this, she cried. But she didn't deny it. I pulled her into my arms. We were getting better at navigating their shadows. A month later, we sat on the porch watching Eliza dance in the yard, her laughter echoing through twilight. They haven't changed, Haley said. No, I replied. But we have. And that, I was learning, was enough. The summer Eliza turned 5, she drew a picture of our family, stick figures holding hands in front of our house under a sun with long, spidery rays. She handed it to me with a proud smile, and I noticed the absence immediately. No grandparents. I didn't mention it. Neither did Haley. There was a quiet agreement in our home by then. We didn't rewrite the truth for comfort. We didn't pretend people were better than they were just because we wished they had been. The story of Diane and Gerald was complicated. But Eliza didn't need complications, not yet. And then the letter came. Diane's handwriting, formal and flowing, addressed to Haley. Inside was a note and a flyer. The note was short. We're selling the house. Downsizing. Gerald's retiring. We'd like to have one last dinner there with everyone. Closure. Closure. That word sat heavy on our table. Should we go? Haley asked me that night. Not as a daughter. As a mother. As a wife. I looked at Eliza asleep on the baby monitor, her new sister curled beside her. Only if you're ready to say goodbye for Rael. Not just to the house. Haley nodded. Then yes. We arrived early. The house was the same, immaculate, manicured, proud. But something felt off. Diane looked older. Smaller. Gerald moved slower, as if the weight of their choices had finally caught up to him. Dinner was simple. A roast chicken. Wine. No sangria. Gerald raised his glass. To family, he said. I didn't drink. Just nodded. Haley stared at her plate. After dinner, Diane took Haley aside. Gerald joined me in the study. I suppose this is it, he said, looking around at the walls lined with framed degrees and accolades. You could have had more, I said. More family. More love. He nodded just once. I thought control was love. I was wrong. It was the closest he'd come to an apology. In the other room, Diane and Haley sat together on the sofa. No tears. No yelling. Just the murmur of voices that had finally run out of excuses. When we left, Diane pressed an envelope into Haley's hand. Don't open it now, she said. We didn't open it for a week. When we did, it contained a single photo, Haley as a baby in her mother's arms. On the back, Diane had written, I was wrong. I hope someday you'll tell your daughters a better story than the one I gave you. We didn't reply. But we didn't destroy it either. It went into the same drawer where I kept the toxicology report, the security footage, and the gallery brochure with my photos printed across its glossy pages. A drawer full of truth. That fall, I gave a talk at a local college. Storytelling through photography. I ended it with a picture of my family, Haley, Eliza, and our newborn in her arms. Sometimes I said the most powerful stories we tell aren't in magazines or galleries. They're in the choices we make every day, the boundaries we draw, the truths we refuse to bury. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. People felt it. Later, a student asked me if I had any regrets. I thought about it. About the dinners, the poisons, the lies. The manipulations dressed up as love. The silence I carried for too long. And I said no. Because I didn't let their story become mine. That night, I tucked Eliza into bed. She looked up at me and asked, "Will I be an artist too?" I smiled. "Only if you want to be. You get to choose." She yawned. "Good. I want to take pictures like you. But nicer ones. With more hugs." I kissed her forehead. "That sounds perfect." Outside, the wind picked up, brushing against the house like a memory trying to get in. But the windows were shut. The doors locked. The past wasn't gone, but it was sealed where it belonged, behind us. We were building something else now. Something stronger. A legacy not of control, but of choice.